All right. We are back with another episode of Competition Commentary. On the left, Dan Cenidoza sent me this video. This is from a scrimmage, a 40 and up scrimmage that they had at Kogan. I'm going to get this started. There are a couple funny things about this, though. Even though Dan is a blue belt here, he hadn't been a blue belt very long, and his opponent is a blue belt now and probably didn't get it that long after this and has some judo experience, so they're similarly experienced.
Well, I am, because he's going against my boy.
And what do you know?
No, it'll be a good match.
It's a video with me talking. I might have been filming this. Let's see. Dan Cenidoza trains out of Gamma. At the time, he is a blue belt, been training over 4 years, but at the time, he probably had been a blue belt for like, I don't know, several months. I'm here making jokes in the corner. They're grip fighting. Yeah. You can see Dan putting a lot of different attacks out. We do a lot of funky hand fighting together. Me and Dan trained one-on-one for about 4 months before, we're going to back this up, before I actually started running our Friday practice at Baltimore Kettlebell Club, which is now at Gamma. So Dan throws a lot of little things out there, does a good job of not giving up a connection or a grip, and he just grabs behind the knee. A snatch single. One more time. If you watch, Dan is putting a lot of feelers out and trying to avoid giving up a grip. They're both doing that, but I would say Dan has a lot of variety in his attacks and is a little bit unpredictable there. Gets behind the knee, trips the foot out, and takes Mike down. Mike has a ghost escape position there. We'll see what they do when they reset.
Well, I guess you won't get side control points. Takedown points.
Mikey, shrimp and re-guard. Get the half guard or something.
Let's see here. So they just started back in side control.
Get the half guard or get the turtle.
Dan settling in the pin. I talk about this a lot with newer people. They really need to learn how to settle into good positions and make a home of good positions. Dan is setting up that arm triangle we've worked. And he got it. That was my kind of top play. And because it's a scrimmage, they just go for 6 minutes no matter how many taps there are. So, yep, Dan doing a good. Dan's father is an Aikido guy. And I don't know if that's his main martial art, but he's been training martial arts his whole life and knows like sticky hands, that kind of stuff. So they haven't. Dan already has a good experience in hand fighting, and I told him to use that. I think it's such a strength to be a strong hand fighter, and Dan does a really good job of using it to access things. Let's see what happened again here.
Hand fighting there.
So Dan, yeah, he's good at deflecting grips and just pulsing his hands out. He drives in with the forehead, controlling the movement. Yup, good consistency of distance, and he just snaps Mike down. Let's watch that one more time.
Snap down, Mikey.
Well, snap down Dan. It's pretty good. Pretty good snap down. Dan blocks the hips.
Mikey, re-guard.
Let's see. That arm that Dan's using on the inside of the hip and that key grip is going to make it hard. That lapel grip is going to make it hard for Mike to get his guard back, to shrimp, etc. Dan might have a north-south choke going on here. I can't remember how this match goes at all. I know Dan does well, but...
Keep the weight on his chest.
Bridge and make some space. Make space, Mikey. Frame.
You stay off of his face, you'll get it. Keep that position right there.
Mike looks like he has a hand in the way of the choke, but...
Weight in the knees, and you'll get it.
Yep. So, what I said there, so look how much weight Dan has on the mat.
Let's get a little bit of less weight in the knees, and you'll get it.
When he lifts it, yeah, he just barely made a movement, but he sent his weight into the chest instead of so much weight on the mat, and that forced the tap. Let's see. Dan pulls guard, gets a control, goes into close guard, has the posture broken down.
No hands on the floor, Mikey. Hands on his body.
Starts going to work on the arm.
Behind his back.
Grab your cup, Mike.
You got to sweep here, too. You can sweep him right over your left shoulder. You can sweep right over your left shoulder. You could just
Mikey,
roll.
square up.
You could just roll over your shoulder. Yep.
Look at that, huh? Look at that corner work. Good job, Mike.
Knee slides through.
Ooh.
Slides through.
That's not what you want. Knee on belly is an underutilized position. If this were a points match, which they were keeping track of points, it's always good to get those knee on belly points if you can. I mean, 2 points. That's the same as a takedown. You work so hard to get good at takedowns, and you don't even work hard to knee on belly. Dan with his Americana.
Get to your side and trap a foot.
He is yet to submit me, but I have been very close to being Americana'd by him. I think that would be the one that would get me. So
Get to your side and
the
trap
problem is, like, Dan is at one point in time, I mean, it's an amateur strongman, but he was competing at the highest level of strongman in the state. I think he won Maryland's Strongest Man. And he does grip sport, or, you know, not competitive grip sport, but it's like he also does like steel bending. And I guess he's done some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it. Either way, he's strong as shit. And you can see it. And he's solid. So let's see how this takedown went. Dan looks like he sat down and just established grips, and yeah, so it's a sweep. Just gets control of the collar sleeve. Smooth sailing.
Let's be smooth, Dan. Nothing too herky-jerky.
Oh, good pass. Very fluid movement. When it's like he's keeping good base right here. He's got good position, and when the time comes, I guess I don't know if that was a pass technically. Did he already have mount?
Smooth, Dan. Nothing too herky.
Let's see here. Does he go right to mount? Yeah, so he just went to side control. Okay. He had the grapevines in. Then he decides to go to side
Smooth,
control.
Dan. Nothing too herky-jerky.
Let's see. Bam. But very fluid movement, very calm, relaxed positioning. And this is why a match like this, I think, can be dominant, is just really picking and choosing what you do. Yeah, that entering scarf. Mike's trying to stuff his head.
Hips walk north. Hips walk towards 12 o'clock. Hips walk towards 12 o'clock. Don't lean back.
That was time. So that should be the end of the match. Dan could have rocked back to get that submission. In the gi, I don't know. Sometimes they call that a crank, so I'm careful of doing that. And it can give up some positional things. I'm going to go ahead and turn this volume down, though, so I don't hear myself the entire time in my own ear. Okay, so we'll just watch this one more time through, and I'll point out some things and just kind of generally talk. At heavyweight, you don't have to do a whole lot. You need to get on top and stay on top. And what Dan does at the beginning of pretty much every little mini match here is he finds a way to get on top, whether or not he sits, pulls guard and sweeps or gets a takedown. He finds the opportunity to get on top. Now, I know he is has the more jiu-jitsu experience, the rank, strength and size advantage. But it should never be a knock at somebody or like, see, in jiu-jitsu when we say, yeah, but he's got the strength and size advantage. It's like, well, they're not that, they're probably in the same weight class. So having a strength advantage, it shouldn't diminish what Dan's doing here. Positionally, he's just very sound. He eliminates space well. He applies pressure. It's very smothering. He's making connections and attachment. He's form-fitting his opponent, blocking the hips. We talk about like keeping the left shoulder off the mat, like keeping people's shoulders off the mat so they can't get some sort of escape. So Dan's just really good at getting these controls, wrapping around his opponent. We go over the arm triangle all the time, obviously. But Dan's very comfortable. Just breathe through your nose and hand fight. Breathe through your nose and hand fight. Head fighting is always a good option. That's another thing we've spent a lot of time doing, is just grinding our foreheads into each other. And then bam. Good snap down. Immediately applying pressure and strong positioning. Strong top. What it does when you do that is it makes the bottom guy feel like they don't have a chance and they stop trying, typically. If Dan was to just rush from position to position and movement to movement, he would give the bottom player a lot more opportunity and a lot more hope, and the bottom player could time opportunities. Right now, the bottom guy, Mike, feels like he needs to make something out of nothing, and there's nothing being given to him. And that's very hard to do. I mean, obviously, Mike at the time is a white belt, and yeah, you could look at it and say, okay, well, he could try doing this. He could try stuffing the head. He could try getting to the side. I've been stuck on the bottom of Dan, and there are times where I feel like I don't have an option I can easily go to without really exhausting myself or something, or it's a lot of work to even figure out where to begin to go against a guy like Dan in the gi. And I'm, Dan's a little older than me, and I've been training, at this point, 2.5 times as long as Dan. And way more during the week. Like, Dan's a consistent couple times a week kind of guy. But at heavyweight, you just have to be, it's a tone thing. It's like, look how calm Dan is for a heavyweight. There's no adrenaline here. It's just pure focus, and it's like you're just strategically plotting and planning one move at a time. You're not getting ahead of yourself. There's no urgency to do something that doesn't matter. That required a little bit of force, that sweep. But, he's just deliberate. When it's time to pull the trigger on a sweep, let's go for the sweep. When it's time to do this, let's do that. And then the more success he has, see, even that knee on belly, it just like sucks the life out of his opponent, because he's not just putting his shin there. He's putting his everything there. He puts his all into everything he does. If he gets an Americana grip, that's what he's doing. And boom, that's just what happened right there. It's like, he has laser focus on the task ahead, and that's really it. It's like task management. I'm going to sit down. Now I'm going to establish grips. Once I can control a post, boom, I have that. And you just right away. That was so fluid and smooth. And obviously at this point in time, Mike's probably exhausted. He's already been submitted twice. His confidence is probably gone. These things happen. It's draining, It's hard enough to get beat in one match and submitted. Now you're in a thing where like you have to keep going, and he's carrying this guy's weight. Like, you can tell Mike doesn't have as much fight left in him, or really much fight to give, because it's tough. It's a lot to go through. This is like almost 6 minutes into this match now. It's about to be 6 minutes. And Dan is just still chill, breathing through his nose. He's been through essentially 3 matches in a row without stop. And it's composure, it's tone. We talk a lot about tone. Set your tone. Dan's tone is methodical. It is cerebral. It's simple. It's basic. It's one thing at a time. It's deliberate, you know. It's like probably the way he approaches a lift or something. It's, you know, strong intention. This is the thing too. Like, sometimes we see people who are like nerdy and we think they're super technical. Dan is a totally different type of technical, and I would say could be nerdy in a sense, especially when it comes to like the physical awareness and a method to everything he does. And unfortunately, it just looks like a brutish, strong, he's just so strong. But he applies his body and his angles and everything so freaking well because he has the experience. He has this tenure of strongman. He has this passive martial arts background, growing up in a martial arts family where it is more, you know, like gentle, so to speak, in that nature. And he has that sort of disposition about him, this calmness that maybe the average meathead doesn't have when they come to jiu-jitsu. They might treat it more like a football player. But anyway, a lot of things to be seen here. There's really nothing to critique Dan on. It's like you could say, oh, when you go for this, sweep this, when you have the scarf hold here, there's not, it's just a good example of applying yourself. And he does like a handful of things and he has a 100% success rate with everything he does. And if you allow things to slow down when there is a gap in skill and other things, strength and mental composure, you can have dominant wins. And if Dan was not as composed or didn't have the tone and all this, maybe this match would have been a little bit more back and forth if Dan became more overzealous like a lot of first-time competitors do. I don't know if this was Dan. I think this is Dan's. I'm not sure. But no, this is not his first competition, obviously. I'm not thinking. It's probably like his 3rd time competing. I think he had done a couple of new breeds before this. Mike's competed a bunch too, his opponent. So, all right. That's all I got for that. Go to bjjshortcuts.com. More things to come there. Subscribe. Blah, 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 blah. Good video. Great cornering and camera work. But, okay. Bye.